Hello, Kathryn here. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to this video. I'm going to be using a special technique to try to separate the sounds of European Portuguese and Russian. Now, the target language right now is Russian. And this morning I have been transcribing this news story. It's nearly done. It's taken me the past couple mornings just because I've had a lot to do. So it's the same story about this airline. And what I want to do is prime my brain to listen to Russian. Now keep in mind, I'm at the very beginning of my studies here. I know basic spelling and some words, but other than that, I'm having a very hard time establishing, spoken comprehension. I can't listen to it without thinking that it's Portuguese. At least my brain wants to think it's Portuguese. Now, I'm going to also play a little bit of Brazilian Portuguese and tell you why I don't have a problem with that one. So let's start with some Russian, and then I'll move on to the different Portuguese variants.
Диктатора и на 10 лет старше двух сводных братьев от своего отца и другой женщины. Старший Ким видел его своим преемником. После учебы в Москве и Женеве он был назначен начальником департамента кибербезопасности КНДР. Крест на его амбициях поставил случай. Ким Чен Нама арестовали с фальшивыми документами в Японии. Его подставило желание мажорной жизни.
Again, it's the je sounds that make it sound somewhat Portuguese, and also some of the other the vowels. There's this kind of I'm having a hard time explaining it vocally. This is normally something that goes on inside my head. Also, I'm pretty sure that the title of this is Kim Jong-un Dictator, just based on my knowledge of spelling and the fact that dictator is often the same in many languages. It's just modified somewhat for the standards of each language. I don't think that really took a genius to figure that out, but I mean, that's my guess. But it's going to be pronounced a bit differently. I can already tell based off of the zhong part. And this is actually where you see a lot of the variation between languages.
Жизни. Сын диктатора оправдывался, что ехал в Диснейленд, потому что очень любит развлечения, которых дома нет. В ответ японские спецслужбы хитро улыбнулись и выложили доказательства того, что сынок гордого Чучхе не впервые в Токио. И приезжает сюда отнюдь не в Диснейленд, а прогуляться по вполне взрослым клубам, чтобы развлечься в казино и с проститутками.
But no, this sounds Portuguese. Let's listen to Portuguese, European Portuguese.
A maioria em Moscovo, onde o presidente da Câmara cita algumas estimativas epidemiológicas que sugerem que só na capital russa podem vir a ser registados até 300 mil casos de infecção. Sergei Sobyanin destaca o facto de a região estar a realizar muitos testes aos habitantes moscovitas. O autarca defende que quanto mais rápido os infectados forem identificados, mais rápido podem ser colocados em quarentena domiciliária e evitar a hospitalização em estado mais grave.
You notice the je, it's prevalent in both languages. And this is actually a news story about COVID-19 in Russia. So I'm also trying to kind of split the sounds between the translations, because the guy is speaking Russian, and of course this is being translated into European Portuguese. So I need to push myself to listen to him a little bit as well, to make that break mentally.
Só em Moscovo já morreram quase 1000 pessoas com Covid-19. No resto da Rússia houve mais 800 fatalidades. No Reino Unido, Boris Johnson lidera as celebrações dos 75 anos do dia da vitória na Segunda Guerra Mundial. Muitos dos eventos previstos foram cancelados devido à pandemia. No domingo, o governo deve anunciar as medidas para o progressivo desconfinamento. Também em França...
All right, let's listen to a little bit of Brazilian Portuguese. I think the consonants in the Brazilian variant are a bit more pronounced, but I do think that the European Portuguese has more je in there. And words like, igualmente, that's going to be pronounced differently in Brazilian. And of course, I have an American accent, so don't mind me.
8 casos suspeitos agora de coronavírus aqui no Brasil. Em Minas Gerais, outro no Paraná, outro no Rio Grande do Sul, 2 no Rio de Janeiro e 3 no estado de São Paulo. E na cidade de Anápolis, em Goiás, os brasileiros que estão em isolamento hoje receberam visitas de técnicos do Ministério da Saúde. E segundo os exames laboratoriais...
You notice that the je isn't there so much. So something that ends with an S isn't going to have the je sound like it will in the European one. Here it's just an S, like s. Técnicos.
Os exames de laboratório todos deram negativo para...
Because of this variant here in the way that they use S, I'm able to parse the difference between this one and Russian. Now keep in mind, focus on the je.
Para coronavírus para esses brasileiros repatriados. Vamos ver на reportagem.
Между Токио и Пхеньяном разгорелся большой скандал. Шансы остаться главным претендентом на отцовский трон испарились, как роса на солнце.
And also there's that ow. Ow. That's very common in Portuguese. But it's really, the European variant seems to press it a bit more to me, in my mind.
Чен Ир прогнал сына не только с высоких должностей, но и из страны вообще. Королевское наследство упало в руки 2 младших сыновей диктатора. Подростки как раз учились в Швейцарии.
Okay, now that sounded more Russian. Диктатор. Yeah, it was the way that the syllables there in that one. Where was it?
Королевское наследство упало в руки 2 младших сыновей диктатора.
Okay, yeah, that last word there definitely sounded more Russian. Because I can't really think of many words in Portuguese that kind of have that same cadence there.
Подростки как раз учились в Швейцарии. И перспектива трона замелькала на их горизонте как никогда четко. За рубежом, смакуя западный стиль жизни, они жили как их сверстники.
I think the R's is what separates them the most. Now, if I focus a bit on the R's, I think I might be able to make the break a little better. Let me hear here. R's.
Celebra a vitória contra os nazis de forma modesta devido ao novo coronavírus. Dividida em 2 pelas cores verde e vermelha, França ultima os detalhes para o início do desconfinamento progressivo.
Okay, now the R's over here.
No terceiro dia de isolamento no hotel de trânsito que fica dentro da base aérea de Anápolis, em Goiás, os brasileiros repatriados da China receberam a visita de agentes do Ministério da...
Yeah, but just overall with Portuguese, the R's are just less stressed than over here.
Ходили в элитные школы, фанатели от баскетбола и боевиков с Ван Даммом. Ким Чен Ир после провала планов с Намом теперь...
Okay, so I think I focused on 2 consonants there. So if I focus on the vowels, those are the ones that really trip me up. So I need to think of a way to mentally separate the vowel sounds. And it may not really be totally possible just because they do sound a lot alike. So I think I'm going to do more focus on the R's and the je sound between the 2 languages. Again, I don't really have a hard time separating the Brazilian from this, just because of the je, really. Okay, this is the first time I've tried to explain how this process works. Normally I'm doing this by myself with headphones in or just at home alone, but I am trying to show different techniques that someone, polyglot or whoever, might use to mentally separate the languages, because for a while it's a bit of chaos in your brain, and once it settles down and your brain becomes quite used to listening and dealing with a language like I have with European Portuguese, then yeah, it's going to seek that out. If I pulled up another language right now, because my brain is primed for Portuguese or Russian, for a moment, it may sound like one of those languages. I call this the TARDIS effect. I don't know if anyone else has talked about this. The TARDIS effect is when my brain will reach out and it will start to either template a different language into, because it's very similar to one I've studied, so it templates it. This happens with, say, Italian. If I listen to Italian, after about 2 to 3 minutes, the TARDIS effect sinks in, and my brain templates it because it's structurally quite similar to Portuguese, French, or Italian, or Spanish. Now, I have never studied a Slavic language, so of course, I don't have a template, but because the sounds are very similar, to me at least, my brain is trying to template Russian into European Portuguese, which is not helpful. However, going through this process of mentally separating them is beneficial for my overall progress and just with this language alone. I have to be able to do this, or otherwise it's going to be very, very frustrating getting anywhere with Russian. Now, keep it in mind, I'm at the very beginning of the studies, so it's not going to be, someone who knows Russian is going to see things differently than how I see it. I have to have that kind of perspective and also patience with myself in the process and trust that with increasing familiarity and work that enlightenment will come. It may be very slow. With Portuguese, I struggled to understand it at the beginning, but now I can listen to those news stories and know what they're saying. But over here, the only thing I can really template is my ability to pick up patterns and the basic spelling I know. And just the obvious context. This is obviously about Kim Jong-un, and since I think that says dictator, then it's probably some kind of history lesson or something. Yeah, this is a couple years ago, so this has nothing to do with the recent news in 2020 that he may have died. So I have, I try to be conscious of things like that. Let me listen a little bit more.
Пристальнее присматривался к детям и не спешил с окончательным выбором продолжителя династии.
Однажды он наблюдал за ребятами, которые устроили баскетбольный поединок, набрав себе команды из охранников.
Yeah, that definitely sounds more Russian. See, a little bit of mental labor, and it pays off. I can tell that's Russian. So I just practice this switch, the rapid switching. This is also a way to challenge myself, so my brain becomes more adaptable, more quick with this, more agile, more confident. The more I do this, then again, the familiarity training also involves these techniques because they're things that I've learned through trial and error in just sheer hours that you can start to separate and build on your knowledge. It's actually very, very rewarding. And the process itself brings me a lot of satisfaction because it's stimulating and it's challenging. And also because I fall in love with each language as I study it. Even if I don't really like the way it sounds in the beginning, over time, as I become more familiar and it really, really begins to mean something to me, then I develop that closeness with it and with the culture that speak it. And that's not to say I think I'm going to be, Russian one day or Persian one day. That's ridiculous. But, I developed the appreciation for the language because these are living things. Languages live. Some of these are thousands of years old. And I'm American. I'm from a country that's like a baby compared to these countries. And there's a bit of awe and appreciation in that. And also because I study international relations and I lecture, at the PhD level, I've taken my studies. So it brings me great fulfillment and satisfaction knowing that I'm not only studying the languages, but also that there's overlap with my professional work, my academic work. And yeah, I get to talk to people, and I find that people also appreciate the effort. And that's another reason why I do it. I don't know, it just opens more doors, it opens more communication. I just really appreciate that. All right, so that is an example of my rapid switching technique. It may not make much sense, but I'll get better at this as well. Just trust in that. All right, thanks for tuning in. If you found this entertaining or of any value, consider subscribing, liking the video, all that fun stuff. You know the deal. And I'll talk to you later.